Good day and welcome, everybody. I'm Shelley Dax, your host for the Tattoo Sisterhood Revolution virtual interview series. And today's guest is tattoo artist Jake Meeks, well known for his entertaining and educational YouTube channel, FIRESIDE Tattoo Network, and for exceptional realism in his tattoos. But before before we turn our attention to Jake, for those who are new on the Telesummit today, in this free event, I'm speaking with some tremendous artists and fascinating entrepreneurs about how their careers started, what kind of obstacles they faced, and encouraging their best advice for tattoo beginners. I wish to provide a safe space for people of diversity to discuss their experiences. Myself, along with this panel of talented artists, are sharing what it means to be an inking professional in this current time of massive change and uncertainty. Every morning, we'll send you an email with a link to the interviews of the day, so watch out for those. And away we go. So today, I'm thrilled to be speaking with Jake Meeks, a 24-year veteran and founder of the FIRESIDE Tattoo Network, which includes informative and hilarious artist interviews, and the FIRESIDE Technique video series, which offers short, detailed how-to videos geared towards helping artists improve their work, as well as collectors make better educated tattoo decisions. I've personally been following Jake since about 2014, and I encourage all my students and fellow artists to jump on his YouTube frequently. In fact, Jake, I just noticed today that your YouTube page has over 3 million views. How do you feel about that?
Oh, wow. Crazy. I did not know that. Can you imagine 3 million? Surely it's just only like my mom, grandmother, and some close friends that watch it over and over and over.
That's probably what it is. You're just clicking it yourself. You're sitting there clicking.
Right. It's just me.
Welcome, Jake. How are you today?
You. I'm great. Thanks for all the kind words. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Well, the first thing, of course, I would love to talk about is tell me what triggered your interest in tattooing in the beginning and how did you figure out how to pursue it?
Oh, man, it was a different world 24 years ago. 24 years went by super fast, by the way.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I second guess it a lot. I'm like, is that true? But you know how I know? It's not from my first apprenticeship, whatever certification or anything like that. I came across the receipt for my first ever Huck Spalding tattoo kit from Spalding and Rogers. I got the Mad Max kit that had like a coil machine, a single 3-round liner tube, some briefcase sized power supply, and maybe a black ink. I don't even remember what all came in it. But anyways, years later, probably 2004, 5, 6, I came across the receipt for that. And it was from May of 1996. And I was like, oh, okay, that's the first tattoo that I did was with that kit. So it was
That's
somewhere
hilarious. Did you actually frame the receipt?
No, I should have. And now I should just at the very least, I should have a digital copy of it but I don't know where it is now. I just came across it back then. But so that's how I know that it for sure is 1996. Yeah. So I started, I started about that time. I got a really terrible tattoo from someone who had been tattooing for, at that point, probably as long as I've been tattooing now. He was a 20-something year veteran. Yeah. And he couldn't draw. It was a street shop, a walk-in shop. And like everyone at that point in time, I was young and I didn't know how to research tattoos or tattoo artists. I thought if someone had a tattoo machine, they probably knew how to trace something and stick it on skin. So I didn't know. And I got a tattoo from this guy, and I could tell when he was laying it out and doing the tattoo. It was actually Dr. Seuss Green Eggs and Ham. The I Am Sam, yes. I Am. He's got he's running funny. And he's got the platter of green eggs and ham. So I got that, and it healed horribly. All the greens, which a lot of tattooers know. Now I know why the greens healed so poorly, is that he didn't know when to stop with green, like so many of us. And so all the greens fell out. The blacks did okay, and the reds did okay, actually. And I thought whenever I watched him do the work, and then when I watched it heal and scab and heal so hard, I was like, I bet I know I can draw better than that guy, and I bet I can do this. And looking around his shop, there was no one there that I felt like was drawing. It was definitely a pick and stick kind of shop. But I was just very I was cocky. I was a kid. I could kind of draw for a high schooler. I could kind of draw, and I thought I thought, oh, if I get into this, I'll be the best tattooer in Memphis in, 6
Ooh,
months. I just had
wow.
that feeling. Of course, then I got into it and realized that it was like way harder than I
Oh
was
yeah.
thinking it would be. And that I actually couldn't draw, at least not, like you think you can. Then you
Isn't that
like,
funny? Yeah, I've experienced something very similar thinking, oh man, I could do this if I knew how. I'd be so much
yeah,
better. And then, you figure out that there's a steep learning curve.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's one thing, I didn't draw that well at all. I just thought I
Hmm.
did because I was a kid. And then second, I also had to learn how to draw for tattooing, which was an entirely different thing than just kind of knowing how to
Right.
draw. So, and of course, that was something that I fumbled with for probably 15 years before I finally hit a point where I was like, okay, I think I can make solid tattoos every time I try.
Oh, what?
So,
15 years? Okay.
I think so. It feels like it. I don't know.
That's funny. Well, how did you figure out back then? Well, do you mind me asking, how old were you when you decided I'm actually going to figure out how to do this?
So I would have been 20 or 21.
Okay.
20, I think.
So pretty
Yeah,
young.
I'm 44, so I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you figure out how to pursue it at that time?
I actually went. Okay, so I got that tattoo, and it was just several months later that I went with another friend to get an eyebrow piercing, and I was just kind of intrigued. There was another street shop, a different street shop in Memphis, and I was talking to, as she was getting her piercing, I was talking to what I thought was just a front desk person who turned out to be the owner of the shop, and he was kind of a biker, gruff kind of guy as well. And I told him that I thought I was interested, and he said, "Well, I'm looking for an artist. Can you draw?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, come in tomorrow." It was a Saturday night or something. He said, "Come in Sunday or Monday, and I'll see if if you can do it." And so he had this like haphazard way of bringing on an apprentice. He basically
Sure.
he had me come in and like hold my hand out to show that I had a steady hand. Of course, it's trembling because I'm scared, and he's a
Right.
biker and I'm a kid. And he's like, "I don't know if you have the hands for tattooing, boy." And then he had me draw a winking skull, because he said if I could make a skull wink and make it look believable, if I could give bone the illusion of movement, that I could draw anything. That was his thought. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, all right. So I drew a winking skull, and I put like a bandana on it, and I did like a scar across the winking eye, kind of cutting down the length of the eye socket and stuff. And like I said, I could draw enough to trick someone who couldn't draw into thinking that I was good. so he was blown away. He was like, "Oh, she has the best winking skull I've seen." So he hired me. Yeah, he
Wow.
hired me, and I spent most of my apprenticeship just driving his Mitsubishi Eclipse back and forth to the local. We about 30 minutes away. We had a naval base. It's in Millington, Tennessee, so just outside of Memphis.
Uh-huh.
And so I would just go pick up Navy kids and bring them back to get tattooed.
Huh.
Every once in a while, I got to kind of like draw a little something, or add Leo or Taurus or something into a banner, or
So you
something
really
like that.
did have that sort of old school beginning to your career.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
exactly what you hear of people having. I learned almost nothing about tattooing.
Right.
I did all of the grunt work.
Wow.
And it's like, how you and I talked when we first talked, not recording, but when we first talked about doing this interview, and we were talking about the idea of how you kind of get bashed for in Oregon for tattoo schools and stuff, and people
Right.
like hold apprenticeships up as this standard that can't be met by anything else. And it's like, man, you guys have you have this like really what's the term I'm looking for? You romanticize the idea of an apprenticeship like they're all like everyone apprenticed under Guy Aitchison or something like that. It's like, man, nobody did that. The
No,
idea
yeah, very few
it
people.
doesn't. Right. So yeah, but that was my start. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So then when you decided that this career is what you really wanted, what was like holding you back at all? Was it just the fact that you had a pretty bad apprenticeship at first?
Yeah, there was very, very little information sharing, especially where I am in the deep South. And it probably was everywhere, but it was very much kind of a good old boys club. Like if there was any threat that you might be better than someone, they would find a way to sabotage you.
Yeah.
That was very real at that point. I don't know if it still is. I'm sure it still is in some circles
In
now,
some
but
spots, yeah.
yeah, but it was very real at that point. People would literally like and intentionally, when they drag you'll run your machine across the countertop before they let you start tattooing with it unknowingly. That didn't happen to me, but I know for sure, someone else that I worked with that it did. It was like, so there was just no way that person could do a clean tattoo. They're just like barring, just destroying, needles and watering down inks and whatever else,
Yeah. I mean, even here in Oregon, even here in Oregon, when I first went to tattoo school, which was 14 years ago, it was such a new thing. Tattoo school was such a new thing that there were apprenticeships and everything before that. So one of the guys that worked at the shop that I went to tattoo school was very rude and difficult. And on the very first day of tattoo school, he said, "If any of you steal my ideas, I'm going to stab you in the eye." I mean, that's like the first day. And we're like, oh my God. And we were paying for it. Like we were paying. This wasn't like a traditional apprenticeship. It's like, no, we put down almost $10,000. You know what I mean? But of course it's not always that bad. But that, was one of the motivations when I decided to go ahead and get into being a tattoo school was like, holy crap, I know I could do way better than this. I've been in college. I know what it's supposed to be like when you're learning something, right?
Yeah. So did you some structured curriculum, right? I mean, it something show up and yeah.
Did you actually go to art school or college or anything in conjunction with your apprenticeship?
Yeah, not after my apprenticeship. I had already been tattooing. So that was 96. I graduated high school in 94. I started in 96. And then, and I think I started art school. I didn't start art school until like 98 or 99.
Oh, wow. So what motivated you to do that? Yeah.
I just, I'll tell you what, I didn't think at that point now, I will say, I didn't think that tattooing was like a thing. I thought it was something I would do until I found something in like illustration or graphic design, like computer, Photoshop and Illustrator and all that stuff was just starting to come around and all that. And so I thought I would be like a graphic designer, an illustrator. And I went with my then girlfriend, now wife, to Disney World. And it was back when I forget what it's called now, but it was called MGM back then. And you could go through the artist studio where they were drawing the cells, the Disney cells.
Yeah, I've seen some of that too.
It was so cool. Like we're walking down and I'm looking through the plexiglass windows and I'm seeing like 50 artists, or that's probably an exaggeration, but a bunch of artists at these drafting tables, in their rooms, like drawing individual cells. And I was like, holy crap, like I could actually do that. And she was very supportive. She was like, you could do that. Like, sure, you should just, apply. And we had a great private art college here, Memphis College of Art. And so I applied, sent in some drawings and got enough of a scholarship and grants and all that loans to actually get in. But yeah, I'd already been tattooing for a while at that point. And then I, got to go through basic drawing, all the fundamental stuff. Yeah. And it's not that I think I learned just a ton there in art school. I really feel like, but it did at least let me know that there was some stuff that I didn't know before, that there were some rules to making stuff look like it's supposed to look.
Right. And I think I remember when I first took a few classes too, it was like, I have the language now to describe what I was intuitively trying to do. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah. I think that really helps. Whether or not you can do it, when you can speak the language, I think when you can like verbalize what you think is right or wrong with your drawing or someone else's, it's always easier to do with someone else's drawing anyways than it is yours. But if you can look at someone's drawing and say like, oh, that would have been better if that shape would have been bigger, or if this would have been smaller, because I understand now that like there has to be a hierarchy. I need to point viewers in a certain direction. Or when you just kind of know that stuff, even if you're not that good at doing it, it makes you so much more confident to know that, what the kind of, loose rules are to making something, interesting.
I always say rules are made to be broken, of course. I watched a video of you taking one of your older tattoos and telling us what went wrong and how to improve it. So that was brave.
Oh, I didn't know we were doing that. That was S8 through that.
It was a while ago. I don't remember when it was, but I was like, wow, that is cool. What was your reasoning on that?
If it's a video I'm thinking of, I did this series with S8, who is the same company with Spirit. The Spirit stencil paper, the stencil paper. So I worked with them on a couple of different things, and they had decided I wanted them to do this tattoo science series with me. And then so they brought their film people, their crew in, and they wanted to do like some kind of candid get to know Jake kind of stuff. And so we went over a handful of tattoos. They said, would you mind going back through these and like telling us what's good about them, what's bad about them? And I said, yeah. And we went through and I kind of approved all the tattoos. Like, yeah, I can talk about this one. I can talk about that one. And then they put me on camera and they didn't use any of the same tattoos. They gave me all even worse tattoos than the bad ones that I was prepared
they got you.
Yeah. So when I saw him, I was like, oh shit, like, come on. I don't want to talk about this thing. Like, all right. But it's, yeah, that's what it is. Like,
you know what, though, it was really cool. It was really cool because with my people that I work with now, when I actually say, oh, you guys don't worry, it takes time. You got to grow and look at some of the stuff I did when I started, it's actually reassuring. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. If you did that, then it could get better.
Yeah. I can't imagine how hard it is for people that are going through your school at this point and and they're on Instagram and they're looking at all these tattooers that are 3-4 years in, and they're so good. It's amazing how many 3-year tattooers I podcast with who are significantly better than me. And it's just like, there's no way that also, I remember the first time, I don't know if you know Aaron Springs. He's one of the kind of new school guys down at Red Dagger. It's him, Stephen Compton, Andreas Acosta was there. Well, I mean, they're just stacked with these really, really great tattooers. And I remember one thing about Aaron that stood out to me was his like really interesting use of color and temperature, and how he would like kind of bathe one area in one type of light and then like single something out with another type of light. And but it was all invented, obviously. None of it's from life. It's all. And I wanted to talk to him about just his color choices. And I started using kind of art talk because I assumed he was an art guy. And he like went blank and he was like, dude, I have no idea what you're saying right now.
Oh my God.
He was like, I don't know about art. He was like, I don't know about color. I have no idea. He was like, I just kind of look at what the other dudes are doing and I'm doing this. And I'm like, well, wait, what was your art background? He was like, I was a cop up until I started tattooing.
Oh my gosh, really?
Like,
wow.
What? Like, how is that possible? You're too good to have been a cop that just decided he was going to be a tattooer.
That reminds me of like a jazz musician who can play the piano brilliantly, but can't read music, right?
yeah, exactly.
And you don't care if you're the one getting the tattoo, whatever. You don't necessarily care about all that. But anyway, so why do you think people perceive the industry as hard to break into, particularly for women and minorities?
Well, I mean, it's so many years of it being just kind of a pirate mentality. This like I said earlier, and in the deep South, kind of a good old boys network. It was very, it's intimidating. I'm a heavily tattooed white guy, and it's still scary for me to walk into a tattoo shop that I don't know anyone. It's like, they're just intimidating places to be, even when you look like everyone else that's in there.
Wow. I never thought about that from your perspective. Yeah, how interesting.
I think it's true. I thought it would get better. And I actually had this talk with Nick Baxter, I think maybe on a podcast a year or two ago, about becoming more where people actually recognize you. So for Nick, because he's one of the great tattooers and really was, was change tattooing, the art focused style tattooing. He introduced a lot of it. And then for me, because of Fireside, and we were having the talk about how scary it was. We were someplace at a convention together and out to dinner and walked into a shop, and we were talking about it. And I was like, I thought it would be, no, he said, I thought it would be easier, like whenever being known, whenever I was starting out, I thought it'd be easier being known and coming into a shop. He's like, but I think it's worse because before they wouldn't even know if I was a tattooer or not, but now they know who I am and they may not like me. And in my case, they may not like something that I say. They may not like that I openly share tattoo information. They may think that I'm a hack and I rip off all their favorite tattooers, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, do you feel
that way too?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That last part, I was thinking more about me. They may not like that I, they may not like something that I put out on the podcast, or they may not like that I do a technique series, or they may, especially a lot of these hardcore old school folks. So I'm getting a little bit off the topic, but I guess to come back around to what you were asking, if I feel that way, I can't imagine what it's like to be a woman or a minority. I remember one of my favorite episodes we've done lately on Fireside, it was maybe a couple of years ago, was with Pooch, Pooch Best. And I was at, like, his booth looks like he's at a for real trade show. It's like he brings all this stuff in. It looks like he's permanently set up at that booth. Like, it looks like a shop. It's beautiful. It's lit. He has, everything is polished. And I was like, man, what makes you like put so much time and effort into like just your setup? And he was like, man, how many brothers you ever see out here doing tattooing at shows? And I was like, oh, not that many. I was like, but in the South, like I see a decent number. And he's like, how many of them are good? And I was like, not that many, man. And he was like, right. And he's like, I'm fighting a huge uphill battle. It's like nobody, like, first off, they see that I'm the only black guy at the convention. And second off, they don't ever see any black tattooers that are good. And it's like, well, holy shit. And I'm not saying that. He said that. Right, but it's when he brought it up, I'm just like, well, holy shit, dude, that's probably, I mean, that is, I'm sure it's a misconception. There are tons of good, artists of all walks of life. But the perception is that, like, there just aren't that many great black tattooers. I think he's right.
Wow. So he feels like he has to sort of like do a notch above. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing from a lot of women and people, minorities, and that they have to do something more to get noticed, to build their clientele. In fact, you had said when we chatted before something that made me laugh about women on Instagram, having to show their bodies. What did you say about that?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure.
You were like, I can show up. You said I can show up in my sweats and nobody cares.
That's right. Yeah. So women can't even, like. That's absolutely true. Sorry, a storm just kind of rolled in. Am I too loud, or do I still sound?
So tell the people what's going on here.
I'm on a boat. I'm at my. I've got a boat over in Arkansas. We just got here, and it was beautiful and sunny. And now a storm just rolled in, and
oh my goodness!
And so if you hear wind noise and like rain hitting the roof, it's because I'm standing on top of a boat.
Awesome. Well, is that okay? Or should it still sounds pretty good. So we're okay for now.
I'll try to duck down where it's not so bad. But yeah, holy crap,
women
strong now.
Instagram.
Yeah. So I think what I said, I forget exactly, but I'll paraphrase it a little bit, was that whenever I see a woman, and she can be really a great tattooer, a mediocre tattooer, or whatever, it's almost like I feel like she feels obligated to take selfies, or to, like, look a certain way whenever she's being photographed when she's tattooed, or like. I'll give a couple of examples. Like Teresa Sharp she's a fantastic artist.
She's amazing.
She can look however she needs to look, but she has this persona. And it's not that there aren't guys that have that. Roman looks kind of like her, like the boy version, right? So it's like that is true. But what I think my point was, like, I feel like that women have to be perceived a certain way to be accepted still in tattooing. And on my podcast, it's all the time, I'm in like a t-shirt and sweatpants and podcast for 8 hours, and no one cares. They're not like looking at me going like, I can't believe Jake would wear Target sweatpants, or Walmart sweatpants on his podcast. They could care less about that. So there's a definite double standard, from that standpoint. And to be honest, I've participated in it a little bit. A story I think that illustrates the point pretty well. Last year in Richmond, the Richmond Tattoo Show, one of the great tattoo shows in the whole country, is in one of the oldest too. Yeah. I was podcasting, and I had my guys had reached out. So I've got two folks that travel with me in podcast, and they're the ones that reach out to everyone and get the interviews set up. And of course, at a show like Richmond, it's stacked. Like, everybody there is awesome because it's a small show, and it's very, very hard to get into. So it's the cream of the crop there. So whoever you want, anyone you throw a dart and you're going to hit a world-class tattooer at that show.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so we had already lined up the people we were going to podcast with. And there's a big Instagram page called called Tattoo Snob. Tattoo Snob?
Tattoo Snob, right.
Yeah. So Tattoo Snob was there, and they were just starting to get into YouTube interviews. So Tattoo Snob came over and introduced themselves to me and just said, hey, would it be cool if I picked your brain about, kind of what you guys are doing and how you've grown on YouTube? And so we talked for a little while, and they had an interview set up with Ryan Ashley from, she's like the Ink Master fame from the Ink Angels and all that stuff. Okay. And she's beautiful. She's a fantastic tattooer. She has a massive following, well over 1 million Instagram followers. And, but her tattoos are like ornamental kind of jewelry looking stuff. Is this getting worse and louder, or my background noise?
No, I can't really hear the background noise. No.
Okay, cool. So YouTube, I keep calling YouTube Snob. Tattoo Snob. Tattoo Snob. I'm the YouTube Snob.
Okay.
No, that's not true.
I know.
So Tattoo Snob asked if I would be interested in doing the Ryan Ashley interview because and sharing it on both channels. And my first instinct, and I told him, I said, no, I don't think so. And I just had this preconceived idea that she was a TV personality, a beautiful girl that did one type of tattooing. And I didn't think that it would be all that interesting. And I'm embarrassed to say it because I did the interview and she was so intelligent, so articulate, so like personable, taught me a ton. She came from the from fashion, so she knows so much about like how to translate cuts of clothing to say like something like laying stencils or even designing panels for the body.
Wow.
Like she brought so much from the fashion industry to the tattoo, to her tattooing, that like I just sat there with my jaw open the whole time. Like, I can't believe this girl is teaching me, or this woman is teaching me. Sorry, I use girl all the time from the South. I don't know why.
Got it.
Yeah, I was like, I can't believe this woman is teaching me so much about tattooing, and she's only been tattooing like 6 or 8 years. But she's a tattoo megastar. She had she's big on the TV shows, and she had the look, and so I instantly discounted her. And I think that, I think it's common. I think we all do it, really.
Well, I'm really glad you're willing to like throw that out there and say, hey, I've changed, because it's never too late to give up your prejudices. Right. There's always time to change and have a new perspective on life. And people shouldn't be necessarily shamed for, that they have to learn something. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. We only know what we know. And then when you learn, that's when your awareness, is increased. And that's what I feel like with our industry. We need to change, and discussions like this is what's going to help change it for sure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's our industry. It's our country right now. It's it's the whole, it's everything. Yeah. Right. It's everything. It's like, and the hardest thing is to be able to, is whenever you've said something out loud and you've put your flag in the in the ground. You're like, this is what I believe, and then you start to realize that you were a little bit short-sighted, or you just, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and the most important thing is to be able to say like, wow, I learned a lot from that person. I had no idea. I completely discount, and I never told her that. I should have I shouldn't have said that. That would have been rude, I think. But at the time. But I would love, like, if I might appreciate it now. If I saw her again at this point, I would find an articulate way to say, I did not expect to, I didn't, I don't know what I would say, but I would definitely thank her for teaching me so much in that 30-minute interview. That's great. Okay. So, can you share a little bit about your newfound interest in tattooing and technology? Or I guess not newfound, but your strong interest now. Yeah, well, I like you've been tattooing a long time too. We came up in a time where it was just like made your own needles. We made our own needles. Yeah, everything was set in stone. It was like you do. In my shop, it was. I just had this. I did a really cool discussion panel last week for Guy Aitchison and Gabe Ripley's virtual tattoo gathering. We did a panel. Me, Guy, Marcus Leonard from Germany. From Germany, who's such a super smart guy and a great tattooer. And one other person, and I'm for Jillian Marie. I did not know Jillian before, but she was awesome. She's such a good tattooer. And we did this panel on truths. It was called The Rule of Thirds, but really it was about finding truths in tattooing. And we all kind of shared how we came up, as Marcus would say, when we were baby tattooers. And what we thought was true and what has turned out to be true and things like that. And I was telling them, like, I thought that everyone that held a tattoo machine started with a 3-round liner, tight 3 bug pen liner, then went to a 7 and thickened up certain lines, then went to nothing bigger than a 7 mag, preferably a 5, and filled everything in. And then that was it. You don't touch that tattoo again. Get it right the first time, and that was it. Right. And so going from that, I mean, with that mindset, to outside of the technology, just to the idea that you might be able to mix those things up. Maybe you were able to start. Maybe you could block something in with a mag and then come back and line it at the end. I love that. Because it was Guy Aitchison when I was watching him once that was just like, my mind was blown the first time he was saying, oh, I really prefer to do 2 or 3 sessions, and then it's going to look very sketchy and kind of blurry in the beginning, and don't worry about it. And I'm just like, what? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that's where that kind of stuff. Exactly. That's where my interest started to get piqued in, what's really possible. And then once social media came out and I saw what people were doing, I saw,
And I was like, well, hold on, I don't think any of this stuff is actually true. And then that led me more into the technology side. I started noticing that inks were getting better. You started to see a lot of the stuff that was being developed in cosmetic tattooing. Things were being like permanent cosmetics, like with like all the Cheyenne stuff, the cartridges, all that. That stuff was all originally designed for permanent cosmetics, not necessarily for us. And so we start to adopt that stuff. And people that I was around at that point were like putting the brakes on. They're like, we don't need like eyebrow tattoo machines, and like we don't need. First off, there was some bad people didn't like the idea of rotaries at that point anyway. Right. So it's like prison machines or whatever. But people didn't want to get past that, and I kept thinking like, well, we repurpose everything in our industry. Nothing's really made for us. What's wrong with using something from permanent cosmetics? Like stencil paper isn't stencil paper. It's ditto sheets. They were made for copiers and stuff.
Did you use the dot matrix machines in the old days?
I never used those. No.
That's what I had when I first started. Yes. You? Repurpose.
Yeah. Right.
That's cool.
So, so that's where my interest started. And then I've just gotten to where I really enjoy technology. I follow a lot of the techie kind of like geek wire stuff and all that. And I'm always trying to think of how we can like take technologies that exist somewhere else and then apply them here. So I've got a startup that I won't say too much about because it's early on, but it's called Digital Skin. And that's what the whole purpose is. It's me. It's the founders of Spirit and S8. And it's a company called Wild Bites that's based out of Spain, who's augmented reality projection mapping AR VR company. And we're playing with ideas of like what would make tattooing easier, what would make tattooing better. Like so when we first sat down, it was things like, what do you see? They're asking me, what do you see as the biggest problems in tattooing? I'm like, well, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. It's about 60 to 70% Black in Memphis, in the city of Memphis. I can't tattoo most of the people in Memphis because my tattoos honestly just don't translate really well because a lot of the subtle painterly stuff, and I get so many dark-skinned people that want these like painterly looking flowers and roses. I'm like, man, that just won't work. I mean, I have to overly simplify them, really push the contrast, strengthen the light source. And then I can do that, but it doesn't look like the tattoo that you want. I see the tattoos that you're bringing in of mine, and I can't do that tattoo on you. So that was one of my first things. Like, what can you develop inks that work better in darker skin? So we dive in and we actually did this really cool, one of the S8 tattoo science things we did. We pretended that we were like a photon of light, and we kind of like talked about our experience from leaving the light source all the way into the skin, hitting this healed particle of ink, coming back through the skin, and then hitting someone's eye, and like what that photon goes through. And what happens, what colors fall out when, why they fall out, things about like subsurface scattering.
Jeez, did you have a scientist with you?
Yeah, so that's one of the great things. We had a retired biophysicist with us.
No way.
That took us through the whole thing. And so that kind of stuff, when you start like thinking about big problems like that, you're like, oh, I wonder if we really could solve that problem. And there are some ideas on that front. There are a dozen other things that we're talking about, but there are some ideas on that front of making tattoos work better in darker skin tones. And it's like, okay, well, if you could do that, let's just back up and think about the tattoo culture that we live in right now. Like, what does it take to get someone to actually, I can make something really cool. What's it take? Maybe if we can, let's say we can. Let's say we can do this. What does it take for me to convince the tattoo community that it's worth doing, that it works, that it's not dangerous, that there's so many hurt. Even after you solve the problem, you've barely solved the problem because you have to convince all these bullheaded tattooers that you know what you're talking about.
I've gotten a lot of not so nice feedback, we'll say, for any of the things that I'm trying to do. It's like, wow, really? It's helping, and it's like, it'll raise the bar for all of us. What's going on with these attitudes? It makes no sense.
I think you might have just hit the nail on the head. I don't know that everyone wants the bar raised. I really don't. I think everyone says they do, but I don't think people really do. I think when it comes down to putting food on their own table and rents going up in there, think about, I think Austin, Texas is a great example of this. So Austin is a very traditional tattoo town. And I was talking about Nick Baxter earlier. He lives there he tattoos almost no one from Austin because they don't do that they're not into that kind of stuff. They want these kind of like pork chop stamp looking, they want sleeves, but they want them to be all like popped on there up against each other, like individual pieces, that kind of stuff. But which is fine. But what's happening is that you can only go so far in that kind of traditional style. And there's another artist there, Jeff Insminger, who did my entire torso, and he's kind of switched. He does more of that really kind of traditional approach, although he draws really, really well. And what's happened there is that it got so saturated. There are like 70 plus shops the last time I was there in that one little, like just in downtown kind of Austin, 70 plus shops. Wow. And then you have the town has gotten so cool that they're like bulldozing these strip shop malls that the shops are in and putting up condos and everything. So it's this threat of like, not only are there a dozen other people within 3 blocks of you that can tattoo as well as you, the rent also doubled when the lease renewed. You can't afford your apartment anymore, and you had to move out to the suburbs or whatever. All this stuff is happening, I think, to a lot of tattooers, and I don't know that they're looking for more competition. You know what I mean?
Well, that could be too. That could be definitely a huge part of it.
I
think it really depends on the area you live in, what country you live in, and all of that too. Because I have talked to some amazing people who, this is sad. They are younger. They're the younger ones, but they're coming up in some places with a very different perspective. Because some of the people, when I say, oh, you know how it is to get into an apprenticeship and blah, they're like, no, actually mine was pretty cool and they were really nice to me, so there are definitely changes happening already, so that's awesome to know. But I think it's super cool in the idea of all of this new technology that helps, including things like an iPad and Procreate and those kind of things that streamline the process. But then so many people are kind of against, you're a digital artist, you don't really know how to draw, whatever.
Right.
But it takes incredible skill to be able to use that. I'm trying myself, and it's very hard to switch it up.
It is. It's a huge change.
Yeah. And then in the industry, it seems that the words of Pablo Picasso are good. There's only one way to look at things until someone shows us how to look at them with different eyes. So speaking of that, it kind of leads me right into, where you've been at, because you've started this, online teaching format, obviously against the odds, against what a lot of people thought you should be doing. So tell me a little bit about that, how it started and what you plan to do with it.
Yeah, well, it started just kind of like on a whim. It wasn't something I thought a lot about. I was just getting into I was just getting into to listening to podcasts, and so I guess Fireside released its first video, I think, in the summer of 2013, and so probably mid 2012 I started getting into to podcasts, and they were still fairly I think Joe Rogan was already going. I was listening to him a little bit, but the main thing I was into home brewing, or I still am, into brewing beer. And there was this channel, this guy, really nice guy, sat down in his kitchen. It was called Basic Brewing Radio, and then he turned it into Basic Brewing Video, and he was just teaching the basics of beer brewing, the science of beer, what hops do, what grains do, and all that kind of stuff. And it kept getting more and more in depth and deeper and deeper. And I was like, man, that's cool. That would be cool to do in tattooing, if it was just more like shop talk, if you could just kind of push it out to other tattooers.
Yeah.
And so I started talking about it with a few people, and then we just decided, I actually had the gym that I was going to and working out at, they had started a podcast as well called Barbell Shrugged, and it was about CrossFit and Olympic lifting and all that. And so I went to them because they were 6 or 8 months ahead of me, and I looked at all the stuff they had bought. I went straight to Guitar Center and bought the exact same stuff, and I brought it, and we drank way too much Jameson and did our first episode. And if you have not watched that episode, it's a shit show.
I don't think I've seen the first one, but okay, I'll have to go watch it now.
Yeah, but there's some decent stuff in it. I think it's called like Pitfalls of an Apprenticeship or something like that. But it was just something about helping new tattooers. And it was me and my buddy, David Evans. And he was on the first probably 50 or 100 episodes with me, actually, David, before he fell off. It just got to be too much for him to deal with, I think. But when we started, it was really nothing. We did it each week as an excuse to sit down, drink a few beers, and just talk about whatever subject. And no one was watching it, literally. Like, we would get 13 views, 18 views, 25 views. And it was like, it's cool. No one's watching. I was a little bit disappointed in that, but I was like, at least there's no pressure. And so we just kept doing it. And then and then eventually decided we were going to go to a tattoo show because we used to work in conventions anyways. I was like, hey, let's just tattoo like a couple of days and then try to podcast with other people one day because we've talked enough to each other. And it just so happened we were able to grab, some pretty good tattooers right off the bat just because they had never heard of that. No one else was doing it at that point. There was Keith Caramello's Tattoo Mentor podcast. He was before me, but he wasn't doing it really regularly. And he had such a different personality. He's a New York guy, so he's very he has that more kind of old school mentality. So we were coming from a completely different place. And to me, I won't say a more thoughtful place, but a softer kind of like more, I don't know, inviting kind of platform, I think, that we were starting to provide. And so it was different enough from what Keith was doing. What he was doing, I think, was really good. And I actually reached out to him to see if he might do a 1-for-1 with me, but he never responded. And then Tattoo Now TV started about that same time with, and that's what Off the Map and all those guys were doing. Yeah, what they were doing. And they started about the same time, but there really wasn't a lot of that happening. And we just kind of, I don't know that we had any secrets or that we were doing anything better than anyone else. We just kept doing it longer than everyone else. We just didn't quit, and eventually you just stumble into I was listening to this interview not too long ago with Steve Houston. And he was like, if you set an apple up in front of someone and give them 100 hours to draw it, they'll eventually stumble into making it look like an apple. And it's just he was talking about being deliberate in how you practice and knowing the problems you're trying to solve instead of just making marks until you luck into something. And I was like, oh, that's kind of what we do with the podcast. We just spend 100 hours on it until it kind of looks like a podcast.
Oh, man. So now you've been doing it for quite a while and you have an awful lot of videos on there. And I do super appreciate I've learned a lot from your videos as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's just really, really neat. You said something about science kind of being your new thing that you're wanting to do some videos on. Have you started? So I think there's 6 or 8 of them. It's I think it's called Tattoo Overview is which isn't a good name. We need to change it. It's there's a playlist called Tattoo Overview, and it's the stuff we did with S8. So it's science related. It's about what all have we hit on? We've hit on what's in tattoo ink. We've hit on with that thing on dark skin or a photon of light. We talked about going through and traveling. That one's out. I forget all of, but I think there are 6 or 8 of them. Yeah, I like the science stuff because the thing is that we all kind of think we get these ideas. You sit and you're staring at skin and you're making these little circles over and over in people's bodies. It takes we all end up in these weird spots in our own minds, whenever we're doing these long tattoos, and you start to think about what is probably happening in the skin, and you get all these preconceived, you get these ideas of what's going on. But the thing is, we don't really know. We're not scientists. We're not dermatologists. We kind of have, some people know more than others. But for me, I remember thinking I could never get, for example, white ink to go in very well with bug pin needles or any kind of thick ink. And I got it in my head. It's oh, I know what the problem is. The particles of ink are bigger than the hole that I'm poking. And so they can't get down in there. Now, and I've just thought that. I just decided that was true. And then I start sharing it with people I know it for a fact, right? But it's not, I'm sure that's not true at all, but we get it in our head and we start just sharing crap that we either invented or someone else invented and passed down to us. And it's why don't we, right? It's why don't we really, we have the technology, there are enough smart people around. Tattooing is big enough that other industries see us as legitimate and are more than happy to get involved and help us solve problems. Why don't we start forming some really creative, interesting partnerships, with people who understand the stuff we don't understand. Yeah,
and see if we can dig deep into this stuff.
Hey, did you ever talk to Hannah Wolf, the one who wrote the Science of Tattooing? Okay, cool.
I gave her
I'd
your
like
email.
To, though. Yeah,
cool,
so hopefully you guys can connect because her book is fascinating.
Yeah,
it's just right along the lines of what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I have. I made a note. I have it on my Trello board.
Awesome.
To reach out
Your Trello board. I have 4 Trello boards going right now. Keeps you organized. So let me ask you a couple more questions, and I just want to respect your time as well. I know you want to get out there and do your swimming and whatever you're doing out there, having fun.
No, I'm doing what I do here. Just staring at the water. I'm good.
Awesome. What's the most important thing that you think that you would tell beginners at this point hoping to get into the field?
hoping to get in or already
we'll say hoping to get in first, and then those who are already
hoping to get in. Well, work on draw. Don't start tattooing on your own. That still puts people off. And if you have done tattoos and you're looking for a mentorship or an apprenticeship, just pretend like you haven't done any tattoos. That's like the mentors would rather like teach someone who's never held a tattoo machine than to break bad habits. So I would say, work on your drawing. And if you're having a hard time getting in the door, I've always said, save a little money, which is hard. I know for people, if they're young, they're just getting started in their careers, save a little money and just try to get tattooed by the people that you look up to. If there's someone that you'd like to mentor you, save up a little money and get tattooed. You'll learn so much more. You'll find more doors open if you're paying for their time. First off, if you're getting something from them, and then when you're asking questions, my clients ask me questions about what I'm doing and how many needles are in that right there. Right. How many what color is that? And I don't mind. I mean, I share all that stuff. It doesn't matter to me. We're sitting there anyways. We might as well talk about something interesting. Mm-hmm. So I think getting tattooed by the people that you would like to work with is always a great idea, and it's probably better. You'll have more luck doing that than you will just dropping off portfolios at the front desk and saying, I'd love for you to look at this. And, I don't know. If I had one tip to give, I would say, try to be patient, keep drawing, and try to keep and try to get tattooed. Three tips. Three
good tips. And what about people that are beginners that are already tattooing, maybe who are not satisfied with their apprenticeship? Or struggling because of the way they're being treated or something like that.
Yeah, I will say there's I'll answer it in two different ways. That's one of the most common things that people bring up to us either through email or in comments on videos and stuff like that are dead end apprenticeships, and they are abundant. And I wish I had like a fix all answer. Unfortunately, if you're in a small town, you're held there because of family or because of, you've got a kid there, you've got whatever, and you can't get out. A lot of times it's difficult. That's why I think that things like what you're doing right now and what we do and what more and more people are doing, online learning is really helpful. Now, that said, the danger there is that it's very, very difficult to teach someone to tattoo through YouTube or through a video or an audio series. But at least you can kind of get the mindset and solve some problems. So maybe it becomes a hybrid of whatever you can get from that mentor that you're not happy with, and whatever you can get kind of online. If it's a toxic situation, which is all, unfortunately real common in tattooing. There's more drama in tattoo shops than any place that I've ever been.
That's why all those TV shows do so well.
That's right. Yeah. That's why I work in a one-person studio.
Do you? I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I don't. I've gotten away from all that. If it truly is toxic and you hate going there and you're being, I know this is about women and tattooing mostly this series, and I'm probably the last person that can offer good advice on this, other than just like, get out of there. Get out of there. You can't be part of someplace where you don't feel safe and you feel like you're being, targeted or not treated fairly. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer.
No, that's a great answer. I love that coming from you. That's wonderful. I think a lot of people would be happy to hear, like, you don't have to stay there. You don't have to be treated that way, even if it makes the journey a little more difficult. It's okay.
I know plenty of tattooers who live in small towns and literally commute an hour and a half to, from Podunk, Missouri to St. Louis, Missouri. Right. And it's just like, well, sometimes you just have to do that, get up early and stay up late. And, if you're dedicated enough, it's unfortunate, but sometimes that's what happens. One final thing that I think is one of the biggest hurdles for beginning tattooers is just, what we call, I do this mentorship, this coaching thing that's for business owners. And we talk a lot about what we call the gap. And it's this idea of we see all these great artists on Instagram and everyone looks like they're fantastic. And it's so hard. It's great to find an ideal, I think, to be like, oh, I would love to, I wish I had abs like Matthew McConaughey. Right. I got this photo of him like running down the beach. I'm like, oh man, if I had those abs on the boat, everyone would know who I was. But But the thing is, like, that's fine to look at, but you can't measure yourself against it because you're never really going to hit that. You can only measure yourself against yesterday. So it's impossible against you yesterday, not against that ideal. So it's great to have tattoo heroes. I mean, there are plenty of them out there to choose from, but you can't use them as a measuring stick because you'll end up quitting before you get there.
Gosh, I spend 10 minutes on Instagram looking at hashtag whatever, tattoo artist or whatever, and I'm like, I'm depressed now.
Right.
But no, I get you, and of course I have to just tell myself exactly the same thing. So after 24 years of tattooing, you're still saying, right? You reassure people you're still learning, right? You're still. I still flip on Instagram and just go and instantly want to take down the photo I just posted. You know what I mean? Like I post one and then the next one I flip to, I'm just like, oh crap, I got to take mine down. Yeah, me too. I've done that before as well. Oh my gosh. But I'm trying not to. I love that one Instagram account. I can't think of it, but I think it's Tattooed Truth Fairy.
Oh, it's so good. I love it.
Oh my gosh. I just discovered that.
Apparently that's run by a very, very well-known tattooer who will not say who they are.
Oh my gosh.
There are rumors out there as to who it is, and I think I might know, but I'm not going to say it.
You're not going to say it, right? No, but it's hilarious because and I think, oh my gosh, you look at so much of it, and it's the photographs are just so beautiful, and then you go on there and you look and you say, oh, before and after. Okay, I get it. That's Photoshop. That's whatever. I'm just not even going to worry about it. I have to just post and be okay with where I'm at.
That's it. And the thing is like where your client, no matter what, if you're putting in the work and you're getting better all the time, you're always going to do a better job than your client expects because they don't draw. And so and that's the number one, that's the number one thing. It's like, if your client's happy with it, that's the biggest thing. And the thing that I've noticed now when I flip through those pages, we all have been on Instagram enough to know what's manipulated and what's not, So it's like, you flip right past it. If it's like overly saturated, or especially if it's a black and gray tattoo dropped all the way to like completely desaturated and it's just like, okay, that's like, so it's gotten to a point now where it's almost not worth doing that because people don't even, at least other tattooers don't pay attention, I think. So. Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably, that's what we're talking to, mostly newcomers and beginners and stuff here, but it's good to reassure them, hey, this happens to us too, and just be careful what you look at and don't compare yourself. That's so important for sure. Absolutely, yeah. Compare yourself to yourself. Look at the tattoo you just did and say like, okay, if I do a little like get yourself a little sheet and go like, all right, if I had to do this again, what would I do differently? And then the next time you do it, try something like that. Try to do differently. And when you're a beginning tattooer, you're tattooing a lot of the similar kind of stuff over and over. Like what worked, what didn't work, what if, what worked? Well, I like how I pushed the contrast there, and then the light looks like it makes sense. Well, what didn't work? It doesn't really fit the shape of their arm. Okay, what if? What if I had made that 10% bigger and left this thing out altogether? What would that have done? And just ask yourself that, and that way you're always solving problems. You're always comparing your latest tattoo to the tattoo that you did before because you took that information and tried to apply it. And then you're not holding yourself to the standard of, whoever, like Jeff Gogwe or somebody, Right. So. Oh, Jeff Gogwe. He lives a couple hours south of me. When I first started out, I was fortunate enough to take like 4 of his workshops when he was still doing them way back when. So so I got lucky. I learned a lot from him. He's awesome. I've told him he's been on the show, and actually just talked to him. I was trying to get him to come on and do some like Zoom podcasts with me about COVID stuff and running a shop through COVID. But we haven't been able to pin it down, or I don't think he wants to. I think he just doesn't want to tell me that he doesn't want to. But he but I've told him before we went and did we went to his shop back before it was 26 Swords, when it was still off the map. Right. We went and podcasted a little bit, and he told me that the reason that he started in Grants Pass in that little town is because he was too intimidated. He didn't think he was good enough to go to a big city and try to tattoo. So there you go. That's the perfect story. He's like, if you're a beginning tattooer and you don't think you're good enough, neither did Jeff Gogwe. Right. He went to Grants Pass, Oregon instead of Portland,
Yeah, I remember him showing us some photos of his original work too, and going, "Oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
it wasn't that great either."
right. Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Well, let's start to wrap up here, and I'm going to ask you,
cool.
what should I ask you now that I didn't ask you up to this point? Anything burning that you want to
Oh,
say, talk about?
oh, that's good. I'm going to steal that question.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know. I had that was pretty thorough. I think. I don't know if I did a good job answering your question. I definitely didn't help. I didn't solve any problems on females and minorities getting into tattooing, but I kind of had a feeling I wasn't going to solve.
Hey, no, that's really cool though. Your support and being a guy and being, like you said, a heavily tattooed white man who is intimidated. Also, that right there was a gold nugget. So thank you for that.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm glad. I appreciate it. And no, I can't think of anything, but I really appreciate you being so patient with me. I know I was like difficult to get in touch with, and then I missed the first half of our call. And I remember I was talking to my wife on the way up here. I was kicking myself as we were driving up to the boat, and I missed our start time. And I was like, she was like, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll be there." And I was like, "No, the problem is this is the same crap that everyone did to me whenever I was trying to get them when I first started podcasting. They're like, yeah, I'll podcast with you." And then they tattooed for 3 straight days and never looked at me again. Right. It's like, I don't want to do that. Now here I am doing the same thing.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jake. No, I'm kidding. Right. It's fine. It's fine. I appreciate you being so patient and agreeing to discuss this. And I hope I get to talk to you about something else in the future too.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you, your Find Your Style seminar that you just did with Guy Aitchison, I think it was.
Yeah. That was fun.
Is that something people can get a hold of or find somewhere?
Yes. So they're going to the virtual gathering is going to rebroadcast it. I don't know. So the way that they're doing that virtual gathering, everything is open to anyone except the actual seminars, which they have to verify that you're a professional tattooer. So you basically just get verified, put in your shop information, and then you can access it. I don't know. I talked to them afterwards about ours. I was like, I don't know if there's anything technical enough in Find Your Style. It's more drawing focused. I was like, I don't know if there's anything technical enough to keep it behind like a secure wall. So I'm hoping that they'll just let that go out to everyone. Okay. I did at the end of it, I talked a little bit about a project that I'm starting with the great illustrative tattooer, Andy Chambers. And if you don't know him, ANDE Chambers, he's one of the best illustrative tattooers that I know. He and I are doing a Find Your Style workshop, a 4-week workshop on specifically on people who want to get into large scale illustrative tattooing. I think it might be full this time around. We're only going to take 10 people, and I've got about 15 people on the list. But if you want to go to FIRESIDETATTOO.com and just sign up to be notified. We don't spam. We don't email very often. If anyone is interested in that, I am gonna, if this works out well, I do plan to do it again. Another one with Andy, I hope, and then I think we're going to try to do one with Bioorganic, maybe with Guy, and try to pick specific and make it really like kind of dive in where it's not about watching videos and listening to podcasts, but it's about like actually learning and putting in the work. So I think it'll be a lot of like it will be demanding on people's time, even if we'll allow for the fact that people are tattooing for a living. But over the 4 weeks, we plan to do a lot of drawing, a lot of iterations of the same drawings, and see if we can like brainstorm as a group and solve some problems and find everyone's kind of unique mark making. That's the thing I've been into a lot lately, is this idea that we all kind of have this, regardless of what category of tattooer we think we are, if we think we're a new school or a traditional or whatever, but there's something unique in the way that we make a mark. And if you go and watch that Find Your Style seminar that I did with Guy, we'll talk about in depth about that, and we're going to try to tease that out for everyone and see if we can find those unique marks that people make, and then find a way to organize them in a way where they like make sense and work and to develop their own unique style. Kind of abstract, but I think it'll be really cool.
No, but that's neat. And so that's virtual, I assume, right now?
Yeah. So
everything's virtual.
Everything's virtual. Yeah. So we're going to be doing it. What we'll do is through a Discord server. We'll have like everyone will the Discord servers I'm just kind of being introduced to. They're big in gaming, but I just heard about it from my gaming son-in-law. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're gonna use one of those, and so basically we'll be able to like give out assignments. Everyone will be able to throw drawings in. Everyone's going to be responsible for critiquing each other. We'll probably pull in a few and live draw on top of them and see if we can help people to solve some of their problems. And then me too. I mean, I'm going to go through it and do the same drawings because Andy draws way better than me. And I'm going to use it as like I'm going to be cheap and use it as a free way to learn from Andy.
I love that. That's great. Well, like we said earlier, always learning. No matter how long you've been in this, it's just, that's the game. That's what you got to do. Well, thank you, Jake. Right. I can't thank you enough for being here today. I so look forward to what else you've got going on, and always something new and fascinating with you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. You're an awesome interviewer. I'm going to make sure I keep up and see who else you talk to. And
cool. Thank you. Help. Yeah, that'll be fun.
I'm definitely going to steal a couple of your questions, and and I look forward to hearing the series. How many people do you have so far?
So far, I've got about 7 or 8, I think, confirmed, and a few other that are talking.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, if any of them, if you want to share any of them with me, and if I happen to know them, I'd be happy to put in a good word. That's worked so well. That's worked so well for me. So many people didn't want to podcast, and they just got nudged by someone else who had already been on the show. And it helped so much. So,
that's a really nice offer. Thank you. You're so generous, and that's one of the reasons that I really loved following you. Thanks, Jake.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. We'll call it now.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. I'll send you some more information after all of this about the different parts of how to do your promoting, and I'll send you some cool like graphics and stuff like that. To help out. Okay.
Sounds great. I'll be sure to help push it in any way that I can.
All right. Thank you, Jake. We'll talk soon.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
To our listeners, your next interview will be delivered to your inbox. And don't forget, you have access for a full 7 days after each interview is released to listen. I look forward to joining you in our next session. Until then, be feisty, stay kind, and get creative.